My husband, Alex Carter, was lying on the hospital bed, pretending to be dead. I slapped him hard across the face. I went as far as calling the organ donation team. Ready to show my devoted love by giving away everything, heart and all. In my last life, I only cared about being sad. After drinking the water handed over by my husband and brother, I slept for 3 days and 2 nights, and when I woke up, my husband was already cremated to ashes, and before I had a chance to grieve, debt collectors were already knocking on my door. Only then did I realize that my husband had owed tens of millions in foreign debt before his death. 10 years later, I was living in poverty and picking up rags for a living. At this moment, my husband, who had been dead for 10 years, put his arms around his lover and drove past me in a luxury car. He smiled and threw down 100 yuan and said he was thanking me for my efforts. I can't catch my breath. I practically met my ancestors right then and there. Darlings, the full story is complete. Now, let's dive into the main plot. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my husband had his heart attack. Looking at my husband covered with white cloth in front of me, I sneered in my heart. Since you want to die, then I will make it happen for you. My husband's brother, Henry Collins, keeps urging me to drink water. I came to my senses, but didn't drink water. Because I remember that in my last life I fainted after drinking this glass of water. I am almost 100% sure that there is definitely something in this glass of water. Just to make me miss Alex's cremation scene, I put down the water glass and ignored Henry's obstruction. Walking to Alex's bedside, Alex looked rosy, not like someone who had just died. That is, I was too sad and stupid in my last life to not see this. I raised my hand and slapped Alex hard on the face. Alex didn't move at all. It seemed he was afraid of being discovered by me, so he was directly anesthetized. This is better. My plan is more feasible. Henry screamed, thinking I found Alex, pretending to be dead.
Evelyn, you can't be so cruel even if you are angry. We can all understand this.
Thinking of the pain in my previous life, I burst into tears, but my hands kept beating Alex all over his body. Seeing that Henry was about to explode, I quickly burst into tears and pleaded.
I told you not to stay up late, but you don't listen. What will I do if you leave me alone?
Henry knew I didn't realize that hitting people was just a way for me to express my sadness. But seeing how cruel I was, he was still a little worried, and he stammered.
Evelyn, please be gentle, Brother Xian will be in pain.
I stopped and looked at Henry like he was an idiot.
What about Henry? Does it hurt if someone just died?
Henry swallowed, regretted saying this, and twitched the corner of his mouth in embarrassment.
No,
He was just speechless for a long time. I was too lazy to argue with him, so I took out my cell phone and made a call. Yes. I want organ donation here. He died not long ago. Come on. Henry wanted to stop him verbally, but due to his identity, he took out his cell phone and quickly sent a message. Someone from the organ donation center will be there in a few minutes. I pretended to be sad.
My husband has always been a kind person. This time he died unexpectedly. I want to extend his life and hope to save more people.
The doctor at the donation site shook my hand firmly.
I want to thank you on behalf of those families. What organs are you going to donate?
I glanced at Henry and sighed.
My husband died of a heart attack. I donated everything except his heart and my body. I want to become a physical education teacher.
Henry stopped in front of the hospital bed.
No, Evelyn, Alex is not willing to donate organs at all. He told me before that we have to respect Brother Xian's last wish.
I wiped my tears.
Henry, I am Alex's wife. I can make this decision. You and Alex are just good brothers who are not related by blood. Who among us can make the decision? I believe you know it without me saying it, and every time you block it for a minute, it will cause organ damage within a minute. You are a doctor yourself, don't you want to save lives?
Yes. Dr. Chen, please get out of the way.
The staff at the organ donation office also asked, how could Henry get out of the way?
I have just contacted Auntie. You must at least let Auntie see Alex for the last time.
It turns out that he just tipped off Vivian Carter. I thought about it and nodded. In fact, I had never thought about asking Alex to donate his organs, because I knew very well that he would be found alive immediately after the chest was opened. What I want to do is not expose Alex's fake death at all, but I want Alex to fake it for real. I did all this just to force out the mistress, Lily, or Vivian. I want them to see Alex die with their own eyes, and there is nothing they can do about it. And this incident will become evidence when they bite me back in the future. Vivian ran over anxiously. She hadn't even had time to take off the perm curls on her head. It looked like she was having a beauty treatment. She breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Alex still intact on the hospital bed. Then he gave me a slap in the face.
You bitch. My son was killed by you. You actually want to disembowel my son. Whoever dares to touch a hair of my son today, I will kill his whole family.
Vivian aggressively kicked out the organ donation staff.
I won't donate anymore. Just go and harm others.
Although the person who donated the organ felt sorry, he still had no choice but to leave. Henry breathed a sigh of relief, picked up the white cloth, and covered Alex. Vivian was sitting on the sofa next to her, pointing at me and yelling.
You stinky bitch who suffered 1,000 cuts. You don't feel sad when your husband dies. You don't want to have to be cremated and buried. Why do you want to be a general education teacher? You're going to make my son cut into pieces with 1,000 cuts. If you want to be a good person, you can donate it yourself. You can die now, and I will donate it all to you.
I covered my face and cried so hard.
Mom, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I just wanted to.
Before I could finish speaking, Vivian slapped me again.
You can't even think about it. Go back now, and I'll take my son to the crematorium later.
I silenced my voice and knelt on the ground submissively. I handed the water that Henry had just brought me to Vivian. Vivian didn't suspect anything. With her nerves on edge and constantly complaining, her mouth was already dry. So she drank the water in one go. Henry didn't have time to stop her. Within 2 minutes of drinking, Vivian fell asleep. The cold sweat that Henry had just dried up immediately broke out again. He then spoke loudly.
Evelyn, you don't want to donate your organs again, do you?
I shook my head and laid Vivian flat on the sofa.
Mom, I'll take Alex to be cremated.
As I spoke, I went ahead and called the crematorium, telling them to come immediately, but Henry kept trying to stall me.
There's no rush for cremation. Let's wait until Vivian wakes up. Alex won't run away.
I'll say it directly.
Henry, Alex is dead. The dead are not as important as the living. You and Alex are as close as brothers, but it doesn't matter that you are not sad at all today, and you say such strange things every time. What do you want?
Henry was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. I kept trying to wake up Vivian, but Vivian looked like a dead pig no matter how I shook her. It wasn't until the people at the crematorium had pushed Alex away that Henry finally couldn't bear it anymore. Pulling my sleeves, my voice became hoarse.
Evelyn, I thought I saw Alex move just now. Let's try to rescue him again.
I held up the death certificate in front of Henry's face.
Henry, think carefully before you speak. Have you ever considered what responsibilities your hospital will bear if Brother Xian is really alive now? What responsibilities you will bear? This is called murder, this is called disregarding human life. I don't know whether the hospital can continue to open, but you must go in. So think about it again, did you really see Alex move?
Henry was so confused that he didn't know how to refute. I sneered and shook off Henry's hand. Follow the car from the crematorium. Henry whined, picked up his phone, and started talking. I looked at Alex lying on the stretcher and couldn't help laughing. The last time I met Alex on the street, his face looked much the same as it does now, with almost no trace of age. I threw myself in front of the car, wanting to recognize him, wanting to cry out about the pain I had suffered over the years, but Alex spent a long time squinting his eyes. He barely recognized me and said with a smile.
It's you. Why haven't we seen each other for 10 years? Do you look older than my grandma?
I was hoarse and hugged my waist. I really didn't look like a 40-year-old man. I stammered and asked.
Aren't you dead?
Lily, who was sitting next to Alex at the time, was laughing so hard.
I deliberately faked my death in order to get rid of you.
In fact, Alex didn't say everything completely, but what else could I not understand? If he directly proposed divorce, I would not agree to it, but if he divorced directly, I would divide half of his property. He also has the reputation of cheating and abandoning his wife. But suspended animation is different. Not only can all debts be left to me, but all assets can also be transferred. I can also change my identity and be fearless and be upright with Lily. I was so angry that I couldn't speak. Alex seemed to be very interested in continuing to talk, and smiled and said to me.
Actually, I could hear you in the hospital at that time. I still haven't forgotten the sound of your crying at that time.
Amidst such ridicule, I fell to the ground clutching my chest. Lily said, "Oops."
Husband, doesn't she want to get involved?
After estimating the effectiveness of the anesthetic, Alex began to wake up. I urged the driver to hurry up.
Driver, please hurry up. My mother-in-law is trying to take my husband's body for organ donation. I just want him to arrive whole and leave whole.
The driver responded and stepped on the accelerator, speeding up a lot. I lowered my head and threw myself on Alex's chest, saying all the things I didn't have the chance to say last time.
I know you are not dead, and I know you have cheated on me a long time ago. I did this scene specially because I wanted to take Lily and fly together, leaving me to pay off the debt. But I don't hate you, I decided to respect your idea. Since you want to die, I will send you to be cremated as soon as possible. I only know that you can hear what I say now, but I am not sure whether you feel pain. I hope you have. This way you can experience the cremation. After all, he was cremated alive. You might be the first one. You may be thinking, why do I do this and how do I know all this? In fact, it doesn't matter if I tell you now, because I have already experienced what happened today. The last time I believed you as you wished, my life was miserable, so don't blame me. You owe me all this.
Alex's fingers trembled slightly, and he couldn't move, but tears flowed out. I reached out and wiped away his tears.
Are you starting to cry now? It will be too late for you to cry again when we enter the incinerator. My cell phone kept ringing. It was Henry and Vivian.
But now I am just a poor woman who lost her husband, and I am not in the mood to answer the phone. With the driver driving all the way, the journey that originally took half an hour only took 20 minutes. But there were a lot of people at the crematorium today, and it would take at least an hour before it was Alex's turn. I pinched my thigh, groaned, shed tears, and found the person in charge.
My husband suddenly died of a serious illness. My mother-in-law also fainted when she found out. She is being rescued in the hospital. I must go back as soon as possible. Please let me be cremated first. I don't want my mother-in-law to get into trouble.
This was the first time the crematorium staff encountered someone who wanted to jump in line for a cremation like this. He was a little hesitant.
I know you are anxious, but others have been waiting for a long time, so I can't let you jump in line.
Although he said that, he subtly held out his hand, clearly hinting for money. Knowing there was no time to waste, I pulled out my phone and transferred him $2,000 on the spot.
Please help me, brother. I am an orphan. My husband and mother-in-law are very good to me. I really can't lose my mother-in-law again.
With the support of money, Alex successfully jumped in line. In less than 10 minutes, he was pushed directly into the incinerator. The staff was about to press the incineration button, but I stopped him. I can't let him become a murderer. And I also wanted to take revenge personally. With my strong suggestion, the staff agreed to let me press the burn button myself. At this moment, the anxious voices of Vivian and Henry sounded at the door.
Stop. Stop. Don't be cremated.
Vivian may have not completely metabolized the drug, or she may have been frightened and collapsed directly at the door.
Stop it and push my son out.
Henry took my hand that wanted to press the burn button.
Evelyn, wait. Vivian still has something to say to Brother Chien.
Vivian panted.
Get out of here. I won't allow you to cremate my son. I'll do it myself. You guys kick her out.
Now that the critical moment has come, the two of them still want to continue their plan of pretending to die. I knelt on the ground and talked over tea.
Mom, Alex is gone. Let's just let him rest in his grave. I am Alex's wife, and I will not leave.
The argument between the three of us attracted a lot of onlookers, and the staff looked at each other, wondering what kind of sad drama it was. The crematorium is not a place for you to play around. Just press the burn button. Henry and Vivian rushed over desperately to stop them. Their expressions were very ferocious. The staff was startled and subconsciously hid aside. Henry and Vivian failed to hold back and threw themselves on the button. The flames instantly engulfed Alex. Two screams came out. Everyone was looking at Henry and Vivian, but I was staring closely at Alex inside the incinerator. Alex must have fully woken up from the anesthesia. I vaguely saw him opening his mouth and stretching out his hands. But unfortunately, there was so much noise outside that no one noticed here at all. After a minute, everyone looked back at the incinerator. The crematorium employees pointed at the incinerator curiously and discussed in a low voice.
This is the first time I've seen a hand that can stretch so high. It's really like a living person.
Yes, there was at most a little muscle reaction before. Fortunately, it was during the day. If it had been in the middle of the night, I would really have thought it was a fake corpse.
I wiped away the non-existent tears, kept the corners of my mouth from turning up, and said pitifully,
My husband is the best to my mother-in-law. This is probably because I heard my mother-in-law's voice.
I was completely relieved, and the suffering from my previous life seemed to have disappeared. Henry ignored Vivian, who was lying on the ground, and stumbled over. He was scared to death when he saw the scene inside the incinerator. He pressed the incineration button desperately, but the fire wouldn't go out.
Quickly put out the fire.
This was the first time the staff saw such an excited family member, and they quickly pushed Henry away.
This relative, we know you are sad. But people cannot be resurrected. If you do this, you won't feel at ease if he is gone.
Yes, and we are an intelligent incinerator. Once it is turned on, it must be burned before it can be opened. Don't be impulsive.
Henry's face was frighteningly pale, and he sat down directly on the ground, muttering.
It's over now.
Then he looked at me again.
Evelyn, we called you, why didn't you answer the phone?
I sighed.
I don't have the energy to answer the phone. All I can think about is what should I do if Alex dies. Besides, cremation is a normal thing after death. Why do you want to stop it?
Vivian crawled to my feet on hands and knees.
You bitch. You killed my son. Please give my son his life.
I sighed, but did not help Vivian up. Instead, I held the death certificate and said,
Mom, I know you are sad, but Alex's death has nothing to do with me. He died of a sudden heart attack and was not caused by me. If you don't believe me, ask Henry. He was the one who rescued Alex personally, and he was the one who personally gave me this death certificate, right? Henry.
I looked sideways at Henry. Henry didn't know what to say at all. He said that the person was not dead. Where did the death certificate come from? Others wouldn't believe it if it said the person was dead. But when I said this, Vivian also reacted, suddenly exerted force, and strangled Henry's neck.
It was you who killed my son. My son was obviously alive, but you insisted on issuing a death certificate. Now my son has been cremated. This is all your responsibility.
I covered my mouth in surprise.
What? Mom, what are you talking about? Alex is not dead.
I turned my head sharply and looked at Alex, who was still being cremated.
No wonder when Alex entered the incinerator just now. I seemed to see fingers moving. I thought it was my imagination, but it turned out to be real.
Hearing what I said, Henry grabbed his hair desperately and did some mental preparation for a long time before he spoke.
It's true. Alex is not dead, she was just anesthetized. If you can wait a few more minutes, he will wake up.
But I still think the matter is not big enough.
What? You mean Alex was cremated alive and conscious?
These words were so terrifying that everyone present was shocked, and the staff's faces turned pale and they murmured to themselves.
No wonder, just after I opened fire, the person inside suddenly stretched out his hand. My God. This is murder.
When Vivian heard this, she rolled her eyes and fainted. I reacted quickly and slapped Henry directly on the face.
Henry, are you sick? You can also make such a joke. If my husband is dead, he is dead. Why are you talking nonsense?
Henry was beaten hard by me.
I'm not talking nonsense.
I smiled. You're not talking nonsense. Then tell me why my husband needs anesthesia. Why do you want to give my husband a death certificate? You should draft it if you lie. Henry didn't know how to explain it at all. The staff around him thought Henry was joking and went about their own business. Seeing that Alex's cremation was over, I couldn't help crying and left the crematorium with Alex's ashes. Before I left, I didn't forget to leave a message for Henry.
You scared Mom unconscious for no reason. You are responsible for sending her to the hospital.
It's not that I don't want to stay and watch the fun, to see how crazy Vivian is after she wakes up. It's just that I have other more important things to do. I casually placed Alex's in a conspicuous place in the living room, and then I quickly contacted the lawyer and started to inherit Alex's company, inheritance, and other matters. I was too sad last time. By the time I realized it, the company was gone. If I don't act quickly in this life, Vivian will definitely be the first to do it when she wakes up. I can't be reborn even once, which means I haven't been reborn, after the procedures are completed. I looked at the tens of millions of foreign debts and fell into deep thought. Based on my understanding of Alex, it's impossible for him to give all this money to Lily or Vivian, but I just checked and he doesn't have this money in his name. So he must have hidden this money. According to Alex's consumption records, I found a garage he rented. I searched according to the address and found the cash. I quickly found banks and loan companies and paid off part of the interest to repay the loans. After I finish all this, I lie down on the sofa, pick up a glass of red wine. Smiled at Alex on the wall.
Thank you, husband. Now I have money, a house, a company, and no debts. I will live a very handsome life in the future. Even more handsome than you in your last life.
I got so drunk that I lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. It wasn't until the next day that I was awakened by a knock on the door. I rubbed the most painful head. When I opened the door, besides Henry and Vivian, there was also a woman who looked a few years younger than me. It looked like she was the Lily I had met in my previous life. She must have just given birth, her figure has not yet recovered, and she is still holding a baby in her hands. The three of them looked sad and had heavy dark circles under their eyes. It must be that I haven't slept well for several days and nights. With a few police officers behind her, Vivian walked into the house, pointed at me and said,
Comrade police, this poisonous woman. She cremated my son alive. Arrest her immediately. Cremate her directly too. Let her taste what it feels like.
I had already guessed that this scene would happen, but I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. I sighed.
Mom, can you stop making such jokes?
As I said that, I took out the death certificate.
Comrade police, this is my husband's death certificate. My mother can't accept the death of her husband. She may have some mental problems.
The police comrade looked at the death certificate.
Yeah. There's no problem with this.
I sighed and continued.
My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and our relationship has always been very, very good. I knew that my husband passed away, and I didn't want his body to rot, so I cremated him immediately. Is this wrong?
Vivian clutched her chest tightly.
You fart. My son has long been disgusted with you. A hen that can't lay eggs. You did it on purpose. You deliberately jumped in line for cremation. You just wanted to get my son's inheritance and company. The person I contacted the company yesterday has already been identified. What else can you deny?
I looked in disbelief and squeezed out a few tears.
Mom, you can scold me, but my relationship with Alex is real. If Alex and I had no relationship, how could he let me be the sole heir to his inheritance?
Vivian couldn't refute. I paused and continued.
You said Alex is still alive. Why don't you think about it? In such a big hospital, can't you tell whether a person is dead or alive? Henry told me personally that Alex was brain dead and his heart had stopped beating. Which one is alive? Are people like this?
Vivian motioned for Henry to speak, but Henry just lowered his head, thinking about it. If he admits now that the death certificate is false, it will be a huge sin. It's better to make mistakes than to make mistakes. The scene reached a deadlock. Lily tugged on Vivian's sleeves. Vivian stopped talking. She choked and cried.
Evelyn, Alex is really not dead. I am Alex's girlfriend. After I gave birth to the child, Alex wanted to give me and the child a status, so he wanted to fake death and leave you. But I didn't expect that you would directly cremate Alex.
Lily is squirming.
But Evelyn, don't blame Alex. Alex did this just because he didn't want to hurt you. He is a kind person. Now Alex is gone. We just hope that you can accept this child and let the child get the inheritance he deserves.
I took a sip of water and imitated Vivian's tone.
You fart.
Then I cried and said to Vivian.
Mom, I know that you and Alex don't have a good relationship. Alex didn't leave you a penny in his will before he died, so you brought this woman you found from nowhere to frame Alex and divide Alex's money. Legacy, right?
Vivian was nearly driven to death with anger, but held it together for the money.
You fart. Alex and I have a very good relationship. This is Alex's child. I know it clearly.
I directly took out Alex Shin's will. Mom, why are you lying? If you and Alex have a good relationship, why is there not even your name in this will? Why is all the inheritance given to me? Vivian was speechless. Lily is still hesitating. After all, she can't say directly that the will Alex Shin gave me was to make me bear the debt. I glanced at the swaddled child and sneered in my heart. After 5 years of pretending to be the perfect husband, Alex suddenly gave up the act. Turns out he had a child. Before we got married, he promised we'd be child-free together. But here we are, just 5 years in, and his illegitimate child has already arrived. Not that it hurts me, after all, I've already been through death once. I said as usual.
Alex doesn't like children at all. We don't have children because Alex doesn't want them, so I won't believe it at all. You said this child is Alex's. Then please come up with evidence, for example, a legally recognized paternity test.
Lily and Vivian never did a paternity test because they knew the child was Alex's. I waved my hand.
Comrade police, do you understand? They just knew that my husband had been cremated, and they deliberately brought a child to ask for inheritance. They also alarmed that I had cremated my husband. But what they said was completely inconsistent. Contradictory.
Vivian said anxiously. The policeman shook his head.
This doesn't count. It can only prove that you and your child are related. But the relationship between you and Alex cannot be proved. Even if it can be proved, it cannot be confirmed that you and your husband only have one child, Alex.
I held back a laugh. One of the main reasons I insisted on cremating Alex was because I suspected he had an illegitimate child out there. Turns out, I hit the jackpot. Vivian and Lily looked at each other, and Lily gritted her teeth.
No matter who the child belongs to, Alex is really not dead. She was the one who cremated Alex. She is a murderer. She cannot inherit Alex's inheritance.
What Lily said isn't wrong, but first, she has to prove that I'm actually a murderer. I suddenly looked at Henry.
Henry, tell me, is Alex alive or dead? You are a doctor and you have a family. You should think it over carefully. You may not remember, but I still remember that when the case was burned, you and your mother rushed to press it. If Alex is really alive, you and Mom are murderers.
I described the two people's blocking behavior as deliberately pressing the button. Vivian hadn't said, "You fart," before she said it. Henry gritted his teeth and refused to see Vivian and Lily.
He's really dead.
I breathed a sigh of relief, but Lily raised her phone.
I already guessed that you would lie, so I brought evidence.
Lily played the video on her phone. This video showed Lily, Alex, Henry, and Vivian sitting on the sofa, discussing the matter of suspended animation. Alex's voice came out from the phone, like the disgusting words from the previous life.
When the time comes, I will administer anesthesia, and you can find a way to knock my wife out and then tell her that I have been cremated. I will give you 1 million when it is done.
However, this monitoring was not complete and did not include the 4 people discussing how to put me in debt. Henry crouched down, not knowing how to defend himself.
Hey, I really don't know.
Lily seemed relieved.
Evelyn, I really didn't lie to you. You really killed Alex, so you should go to jail. These inheritances should belong to Vivian.
I looked frightened and didn't say anything. I just picked up a handkerchief and wiped my eyes without tears. I brewed up an emotion and cried so hard. Comrade police, I want to call the police. The 3 of them deliberately made my husband fake his death without telling me. I was so sad at the time that I didn't even notice that my husband had passed away. I pointed at Henry and Vivian.
The two of them knew clearly that I wanted to donate organs to my husband and cremate my husband, but they deliberately didn't tell me. They did it on purpose. They deliberately wanted me to cremate my husband, and then brought people to the door to rob the property.
I asked Vivian and Lily.
I only know that my husband has passed away and I will cremate him according to normal procedures. Is this wrong?
Obviously not. The two of them didn't expect me to speak so clearly. They thought I knew that this matter would collapse and that they would leave me around. But I have died once, and I am no longer the simple and stupid person I was in my last life. The moment I woke up, I already thought about the next step. I cried so hard that I couldn't even open my eyes.
When I wanted to donate my organs, Mom, you were also there. Why didn't you tell me the truth when you refused to donate? If you just wanted a divorce, how could I not agree? It's obviously you deliberately deceived Alex and made Alex believe your lies. Choose suspended animation. Alex was cremated on purpose again. Let me be the sinner who sends my husband to the crematorium. You are so cruel.
Vivian hesitated.
But because Alex said it, I must make you believe it, so I can only stop you from donating your organs and dare not tell the truth.
I took out my phone.
What about this? You called me on the way to the crematorium, which means you know. I'm going to cremate Alex. I was too sad and didn't answer the phone, so why didn't you text me? When we arrived at the crematorium, it was obvious that Alex had not been cremated yet. Why didn't you tell the truth and instead pressed the incineration button in a fussy manner?
Vivian and Henry were speechless, but I knew because they confidently thought it was too late. As long as they got me out of the crematorium for a moment, their plan would succeed. After all, fortune favors the bold. There is no conclusion to this farce in the end. Our public is right and our mother-in-law is right. The police had no choice but to take us all back to the police station and temporarily detain us pending investigation. But after a few days of investigation, they found that I am really a very simple wife. I don't know anything about Alex's cheating. I never ask about Alex's business trips and entertainment, and I never check his mobile phone. I also visited my neighbors, friends, and colleagues, and checked Alex's surveillance at home. It is certain that we are a good couple who are inseparable and have never even had a quarrel. And it's impossible for the police to know that I've been reborn, just based on the current evidence. How could such a wife kill her husband inexplicably? What Vivian, Henry, and Lee said was full of loopholes. There were obviously countless opportunities to tell me that Alex was not dead. But they had to wait until I cremated Alex before talking, especially Henry and Vivian, who clearly saw Alex entering the incinerator and still refused to tell the truth. He even pressed the button himself. Although they said it was unintentional, who would believe it? Not only that, but the idea of suspended animation from the beginning was already very alarmist. In this way, the investigation found that I was just an innocent and pitiful woman who lost her husband. 3 others were imprisoned on suspicion of murder. Half a year later, the 3 were convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. However, Vivian did not have such a good life. She died of a heart attack after learning that she was serving a life sentence. After Henry's wife found out about this, she immediately divorced Henry and left with the children. I heard that Henry was filled with remorse and attempted suicide several times in prison, but none of them succeeded. As for Lily, she contacted me several times and begged me to go to the prison to visit her, but I ignored her. She began to write to me, begging me to have more money, and begging me to raise the child for Alex's sake. I want him to see what kind of happy life I live in heaven. Dear princesses, do you like novels like this? If you were reborn, what is the one thing you would want to do the most?